Ni hao. I wish I could say more. I've studied European languages and some Japanese. Maybe I'm at the wrong conference. Some time ago I was struck by an article in Newsweek magazine that was entitled, having studied French, that the title of the article was "The Future Doesn't Speak French." This article highlighted the fact that though the State Department has designated Chinese a critical language, the most recent data show that only 24,000 students in grades 7 through 12 study Chinese, a language, as you know, spoken by 1.3 billion people worldwide. Now, maybe you could update those numbers, but they're not too far off. By comparison, more than 1 million students learn French, a language spoken by, well, at most 75 million people. In this article, when 12th grader Elizabeth Hoffman was asked by her fellow high school students, most of whom were taking Romance languages, why she was taking Chinese, her answer was, "Why aren't you?" Well, I would add today, why aren't you learning Arabic and Farsi and Pashto and any number of other languages in which we should be more fluent? It really is a pleasure to be speaking before a group like you that doesn't need to have this instruction. And I must say it is a pleasure to be with you again. I was here, I think, 2 years ago, and I suspect it was maybe half this many people. So the growth is stupendous. I'm just delighted to see it. As you know, language learning is a long-term process. The earlier you start, the better. Learning Chinese or Arabic or even French, for that matter, doesn't happen overnight. Now, Congress often thinks that there are shortcuts for complex problems. Unfortunately, as far as I know, sticking the book under your pillow or whatever else you might do, there is no shortcut to acquiring fluency in a foreign tongue. It takes hard work, individual commitment, and institutional support. And of course, that's where you, and actually I, come in. In my own congressional district, I'm pleased that some school districts are offering language instruction in Mandarin. In East Brunswick School District, children are exposed to bilingual Mandarin education in kindergarten through 5th grade. Over the years, I've visited a number of weekend Chinese language schools where students learn language and culture. And this month, I was really pleased to visit a new elementary school with a very mixed clientele, mostly Anglo families, where the primary language of instruction in this American school is Mandarin. And they're doing really quite well. I thank the College Board for making it possible to offer the first AP Chinese language courses starting a few years ago, followed by the first exam, I guess, a couple of years ago. Now, some members of the public and the media might question why, with our unparalleled economic and military power, Americans need to learn languages of the world. Doesn't everyone speak English, they might ask? Well, the reasons to launch a nationwide effort to build a pipeline of professionals with advanced foreign language capabilities should be self-evident. Without this international fluency, we lose business, we lose raw materials, our scientists lose collaborations, our national security is diminished, and we lose opportunities for cultural enrichment. With regard to national security, we have storerooms full of seized documents that our translators can't get through. And some of you may have noticed the story a year or two back when FBI officials admitted that they had destroyed an entire storeroom of documents that they couldn't translate. During the 2008 campaign, however, things, I think, took a good turn. President Obama expressed concern about our nation's foreign language deficit, saying to the American people, "You should be thinking about how your child becomes bilingual. We should have every child speaking more than one language." That was from the soon-to-be President of the United States. President Obama's opponents seized on his remarks, making the claims that he was trying to force Americans to learn a secondary language. But such criticism is not only foolish, it's dangerous. Another Illinois senator, the late Paul Simon, in his book, The Tongue-Tied American, once called the United States a linguistically malnourished nation. He said that this was several decades ago. He said our nation's appetite for learning a foreign language still needs to be filled. Well, rather than attacking people who acknowledge our nation's language deficit, I hope that we'll reach a political consensus that it's in this country's interest for us to change, to stop undervaluing and underinvesting in foreign language education. There are, I know, members of both parties in Congress who talk about this, who talk about it for economic reasons, who talk about it for reasons of national security, who talk about it for reasons of culture. And we need to build that, just as you are building your membership. I'd like to tell you a little bit about some language accomplishments here in Washington. In 2006, Congress passed into law the College Cost Reduction Act, which contained a provision that I had included that will provide it does now provide upfront prepaid tuition assistance of $4,000 a year with a maximum of $16,000 for college students who commit to teaching critical foreign languages in a public school in a high-need community. This funding, and I must say, this funding is little known, and so anything you can do to spread this, spread the word, I think will be most welcome. The funding for Teach Grants is now part of a student's college aid package, and students are now beginning to graduate from college, and I think this nation's investment in this program will be returned many times over. Even as late as fiscal year 2006, funding for one of the key language programs, the National Security Education Program, known as the NSAP, had been flat funded. In fact, the funding for it was being used up. And I led the effort to more than double that figure, and I'm pleased to report that we have achieved the goal of doubling the funding to more than $30 million every year since. A couple of years ago, I led the effort in Congress to ensure that language instruction would be included in the Higher Education Reauthorization Bill. And I was able to include in the House version my legislation. The International Education Leadership Act of 2008, which would create a Deputy Assistant Secretary for International and Foreign Language Education in the Department of Education, is now a reality. Andre Lewis works every day to provide leadership in directing efforts aimed at international and foreign language education. He is our advocate in the department. I'm still working to see that position is raised to the level of assistant secretary. I'll keep you posted on how that goes. I was also able to create 2 new programs that would advance language capacity. The Loan Forgiveness for Service in Areas of National Need program, authorized in one section of the Higher Education Opportunity Act, would provide loan forgiveness for foreign language specialists who work as teachers or government employees. However, although we created the program, we haven't been successful in securing funding for it. And so maybe you can let your representatives know why the funding for this authorized program is essential, that would provide loan forgiveness for student loans for those who go into this work. The Science and Technology Advanced Foreign Language Grants Program would award funding to institutions of higher education to create programs that encourage students to develop foreign language proficiency as well as science and technological knowledge. So, for example, an engineering or a science major could get Chinese. Again, sorry to say, the funding is needed. Although the program is authorized, the representatives and appropriators need to hear about why these programs are essential. We need to dramatically change how our children learn languages, starting at the earliest ages. So, well, you understand that better than anyone. And so I've reintroduced the Foreign Language Education Partnership Act. This bill would amend the Foreign Language Assistance Program under the Elementary and Secondary Education Act to create a new, well, it's sometimes called K through 16 or K through 12 plus higher education foreign language partnership program. It would provide incentives for creating model programs of articulated, sequenced foreign language instruction from K through 12 with a goal of graduating high school students with an advanced level of proficiency that will fit right in to the higher education curriculum. The Education and Labor Committee is now, thank you, yes, please work on that. The Education and Labor Committee is now in the process of reauthorizing the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, and I'm hopeful that this will include this articulated language program. Now we need to go farther. I want to see the Secretary of Education coordinate with the Departments of State and Defense and Commerce and the intelligence agencies to assess and report on national language needs and share best practices. You know, the Defense Department has developed some very good methods of language instruction. I think there are some things we can learn from that. It's for different uses than we have in our elementary language instruction. Nevertheless, I think there are things we can learn and teach each other. I want to see the Secretary of Education provide incentives for states to adopt nationally recognized standards of world language learning that have been adopted in 38 states. I want to see the Secretary of Education provide scholarships for language study abroad, for opportunities for secondary students and for teachers and prospective teachers. I hope that we will see the National Center for Education Statistics at the Department of Education collect annually and analyze and internationally benchmark data on the number of schools offering articulated world language programs and the number of students reaching proficiency by high school graduation. Further, I want to see the Secretary of Education conduct and disseminate research in the area of best practice, optimal time and intensity of language programs at the elementary and middle level. Of course, there are things that can and are being done at the state level. As I said, there are 38 states that already have some standards of world language learning. We should have a state language, within each state,